what first of all, what frequency separation ultimately will allow us to achieve is that it's just going to make the skin, the tones in it, it's just going to make the skin overall look very smooth. Now, right now, why is it not looking smooth, first of all? So if I zoom in to this image, and I just move around, anytime a portrait doesn't look smooth, the skin doesn't look smooth, is because it has these tones, various tones in patches. Okay, for example, this is a darker tone here. This is slightly lighter. This part is even lighter. Since the light is falling from this side, as you can see in the catch light, this side is even lighter. Okay, so what happens is because of the shadows, the way the highlights are forming, the way the person's face is structured, they're going to be all these inconsistent patches throughout the face where the color tones and the light tones, they are not even. Okay, that's the word, they're not even. So overall, it just doesn't look too smooth. All right, now the mistake made by a lot of beginners when it comes to smoothing this is that they go to this option here which says filter, and then they go to this option which says blur, and there's a very popular option in Photoshop which also we're going to be using a lot in this course and in frequency separation. But a lot of beginners, what they do is they'll just use this only. So what they'll do is if I just select this Gaussian blur, okay, what this does is if I take this value down to 0, it has no effect, right? But just see what happens when I start to move this higher. It basically is going to start to add a blur to your photo like this. Now keep an eye on that inconsistency in the patches that we were talking about. What you'll find is that when you start blurring this shot, that inconsistency or the unevenness starts to reduce because you're just blurring the whole image, right? Just see this. Like for example, if I were to take it really far, so, okay, not that much, but maybe something like this much at 13.9, you can see that the skin looks, the tones, okay? So we're not concerned right now about the details that we're seeing. I'm just talking about the tones. That means the color and the light that you're seeing on the skin. You can see that this looks more even as compared to this, right? So obviously, because when you blur something, you're just kind of evening things out. But the problem is this doesn't look good at all because this has blurred out everything, even the eyes, the lips, the hair. We don't want that. So you can say, okay, Kush, then what we can do is we can correct this by using a layer mask, right? So if I just zoom out, let's apply a layer mask to this blurred image. So I apply a layer mask, and you know that how the layer mask works. Anything white means you're seeing the top layer, and when you start painting black, then you are seeing any layer underneath, right? So if I select the paintbrush here and I select the black color is selected, if I start with the mask selected, with the layer mask selected, if I paint with black, it'll start showing us anything underneath this layer, okay? So I hope you know how layer masking works. If not, I do implore you to check out my Photoshop for Beginners course, okay? But basically painting black will reveal the layers below. Painting white, anything white means you're seeing this layer, okay? That's all layer masking is. So what we can do is with black selected, we can maybe just run this on the eyes because we don't want any smoothing out on the eyes. Eyes have to be sharp, okay? We can do it on the lips, maybe the nose we don't want, okay? Of course, the hair we don't want smoothened out. By the way, what I'm showing you right now is the incorrect way of doing things, and you're just going to come to know why it is incorrect. Okay. Now if you look at this, this starts to look better, right? I mean, we have blurred the skin, but at least we've got the essentials out. Okay. But still the blur is a lot. So maybe what we can do is we can select this particular layer, it's already selected, and I can decrease the opacity so the effect of the blur reduces. Okay. Something like this. So this is the original. You can see now everything is being shown, and maybe just around to this much. And you can see this kind of looks okay. This is not too bad, is it? You know, we've just reduced the intensity of the blur. You can also do that by using smart objects. I will talk about all that later on. I'm just showing you the wrong method right now, okay? But right now, let's compare this with the layers below. And what I'm going to do is, just to be more organized, I'm just going to select both these layers, the skin cleanup and the color correction that we did before, and I'm going to select this icon, click on this icon, which is like a folder, which will just group them. Okay, so this just makes it more organized so that we don't have to see all those layers every time. I'm going to call it color correction and skin cleanup. Okay, so we know that those two were in this folder. You can always open the folder like this, so you'll see those layers. It just reduces the amount of layers that you're seeing here. Okay, it's just a better way of going about things. So if I hide this, this was before our blurring thing that we just did right now, and this is with the blurring thing. So let me just zoom in, you'll be able to see something better. So without and with. But you can see that this just doesn't look natural, right? This kind of gives a very plastic feeling to the skin of this lady. And this is used by a lot of beginners, this simple blurring technique and then using a layer mask to get the essentials out. But of course, it's a very amateur way of going about things because this just looks too plastic, too unreal, and professionally you simply cannot do this because this just won't look good. Now, the question is, why is this not looking good? The reason for that is, this is the original, this is with the blur. What happens is, why is it looking so plastic is because when we blur something, you know, just keep an eye on the texture that she has on that on the skin. So this is the beautiful texture that she has on the skin, and texture looks amazing, but when we blur the image, we are blurring that texture also, which gives that doll-like look, the plastic doll-like look, which is just not good. So again, texture, good texture, and boom, it just doesn't look good. Okay, so what if there was a way to, so in this, if you actually notice, when we have blurred this, the tones are good. That means the color and the lightness is good, right? But the texture is not available. That's what is causing the problem. So what if there was a way to first, before we do this step of blurring, okay, so right now we are at this, the original. What if there was a way that we pick out only the texture from this image, okay, and keep it and put the texture on the separate layer? Okay, that means all these little texture, the things that you're seeing here, all these nice little texture which make up the portrait, what if there was a way that I can pick only the texture from this image and put it on a separate layer so that when I ultimately blur it like this, on top of that, I can put the texture. So we get the best of both the worlds, that we get the texture also and we get this smooth, even skin also. And a combination of these two will actually look realistic because you'll get the smoothing of the color and the light tones. And also at the same time, since the texture is on a separate layer, you'll get that texture on top of this also. Okay, so again, it's like this. If I could pick the texture from here and then put the texture on this, on what you're seeing right now, this would look really good because this would look realistic, and that is what frequency separation is. Okay, that you're separating the two frequencies. What are the frequencies we're talking about? One frequency is the texture, which is, you know, at a different frequency level. You don't really have to understand what frequency means. Just think that it is something at a different frequency than the colors and the tones, which are a different frequency. Okay, so what we're doing is that we know that colors and the tone here are different. They belong to a different frequency level, and the texture belongs to a different frequency level. And what we're going to do in frequency separation is we're going to first of all separate these two out and put them on separate layers, and then we're going to blur the color and tone part so that our texture is intact, but we're going to just smoothen out the frequencies of the color and tone, but it will not blur or affect our texture because it's going to be on a separate layer. Again, if this is sounding tough, don't worry. When we actually do it, I'll again be mentioning this again and again because I really want you to understand this process. Okay, just to show you a small example of this, let's say if I were to create, now think of this as the color and tone frequency. Okay, we've already seen this. Now if I were to create a new layer And let's say I have my paintbrush selected, I have the black color selected, and I just paint this on this. Since this is on a separate layer, this is not getting blurred, right? That's because the blurring is happening here, and on top of that we've put this color. Of course, that doesn't make sense, but what I'm trying to just say is that from when we actually do frequency separation from the next video onwards, we're going to do something similar, that this is going to be one of the frequencies of the color and tone which we'll handle, and then the second layer on top will have, instead of this black color, it'll actually have the texture that you're seeing here on the whole face. Okay, and that is just going to come on top, so we're not going to actually blur out the texture, so it's going to look realistic. Okay, that is what frequency separation is all about. So I hope that you understood it. If you didn't, no problem, we're actually going to do it, so there's no doubt that you'll understand it that time. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.